Some ancient structures were built with a precision that defies modern explanation. This is the core of reverse engineering ancient genius, a quest to uncover how our ancestors achieved the seemingly impossible. By taking apart their greatest creations, we are not just studying history, we are recovering revolutionary knowledge for our own future. We will investigate a 2,000-year-old analog computer and a stone pyramid aligned to true north within a fraction of a degree. This journey reveals how ancient insights can solve modern problems in engineering and design. What do you believe is the true limit of human ingenuity? It was a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera that gave up one of history's most profound secrets. Spongedivers, seeking treasure in the year 1900, brought up a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed unremarkable. For decades, it sat in a museum, a curiosity. Then, researchers looked closer. They discovered within that calcified lump an intricate clockwork of gears, a technological marvel from a time we thought knew well. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer dating to around 100 years before the Common Era. Its complexity was staggering, a coordinated system of interlocking bronze gears designed to predict the movements of the heavens. It could forecast astronomical positions, lunar phases, and even eclipses with remarkable accuracy. The historian Derek de Solla Price famously called this device more valuable than the Mona Lisa, and for good reason. It single-handedly rewrote our understanding of ancient technological capability. Before its discovery, we believed such intricate mechanical genius did not emerge until the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. The mechanism's most astonishing feature was its differential gear, a system of meshing gears that allows for the calculation of relative speeds. This technology was not thought to be invented until the 16th century, yet here it was, functioning perfectly in a 2,000-year-old machine. Reconstructions by modern researchers reveal it was a kind of orrery, a portable model of the universe. By turning a hand crank, a user could watch the sun and moon traverse the sky, see the phases of our lunar companion, and anticipate celestial events years in advance. It blended science and art into a single, breathtaking device. How was such a thing even conceived? Many experts suspect it connects to a lost tradition of mechanical engineering, perhaps inspired by the legendary works of inventors like Archimedes. This was not a one-off oddity. It suggests a school of thought, a lineage of craftsmanship and astronomical knowledge that was almost entirely erased by the passage of time. The Antikythera Mechanism forces a humbling question. If this one incredible machine survived by pure chance, how many other wonders of the ancient world have we lost forever? What other chapters in the story of human ingenuity are missing from our history books? This single artifact proves that our timeline of innovation is not a straight line, but a map with vast, unexplored territories. That intricate Greek computer reveals a world of forgotten scientific genius, but it was not the only civilization to achieve the impossible. In the vast deserts of Egypt, a far grander and more enduring mystery was taking shape at the very same time. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a monument of such staggering scale and precision that its construction methods remain one of history's most hotly debated puzzles. Picture thousands of workers hauling massive stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons under a relentless sun. The sheer logistics are mind-boggling. How do you cut, move, and place millions of these stones with a precision that still baffles engineers today? The pyramid's base is almost a perfect square, and its sides are aligned to the cardinal points with an error of just a fraction of a degree. To achieve this, the builders needed an incredibly sophisticated understanding of astronomy, able to pinpoint true north without a magnetic compass. Theories have swirled for centuries. Did they use massive straight ramps, spiraling ramps, or perhaps even systems of levers and water channels to float the stones into place? The internal ramp theory, proposed by Jean-Pierre Houdin, suggests that the pyramid builders constructed a spiraling ramp inside the growing structure itself, a clever way to transport blocks ever higher without the immense material cost of an external ramp that would dwarf the pyramid. Then there is the challenge of the stone itself. How do you cut granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, using only copper tools which are relatively soft? The answer may lie in a surprisingly simple abrasive. By using a slurry of wet sand and dragging copper saws through it, the Egyptians could have effectively sanded their way through solid granite. The unfinished obelisk in Aswan offers a frozen snapshot of this process, a massive stone still attached to the bedrock, its sides partially cut, revealing the tool marks and the immense effort that was suddenly abandoned. This single artifact shows us the ambition and the risk, a project so colossal that a single hidden crack could render years of labor worthless. But the true genius of the pyramids may not be in the stones themselves, but in the people. How did an ancient society coordinate such a vast workforce, providing food, water, and shelter for thousands, all while maintaining a project timeline that spanned decades? This was not the work of slaves, as was once believed, but likely a skilled, seasonal labor force, a national project that united the country. The organizational structure, the supply chains, the management of such a complex endeavor without any modern technology. This is a lesson in efficiency and sustainability we are only beginning to appreciate. The pyramids stand not just as tombs, but as timeless testaments to what human beings can accomplish when we organize ourselves around a common, seemingly impossible goal. While the pyramids demonstrate a mastery of stone and logistics, another ancient culture was leaving messages on a canvas of an entirely different scale. Scattered across the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines are a gallery of giants. These are not structures you can walk through, but immense geoglyphs, drawings so vast they can only be truly comprehended from the sky. For centuries, a desert culture created hundreds of these figures between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after. They depicted a hummingbird in mid-flight, a colossal spider, a curious monkey with a spiraling tail, and perfect geometric lines that stretch to the horizon. The method of creation seems deceptively simple. The Nazca people meticulously removed a layer of dark, sun-baked pebbles from the desert floor, exposing the lighter, sandy soil beneath. This single contrast created lines that have endured for over 1,000 years. But the simplicity of the technique belies an incredible feat of coordination and vision. How do you design a hummingbird with a wingspan of over 60 meters, ensuring its proportions are perfect when you are standing on the ground and cannot see the whole picture? The answer may lie in a form of ancient engineering that relied on mathematics and simple tools. Researchers like Maria Reich, who spent decades mapping the lines, found wooden stakes driven into the ground at key points. These stakes could have been the anchors for ropes, allowing teams to plot out curves and straight lines over immense distances using basic geometric principles. They might have scaled up a small model, using a consistent unit of measurement to transfer the design onto the desert canvas, one carefully placed step at a time. The purpose of these monumental artworks remains one of their greatest mysteries. Many of the lines point directly to the place on the horizon where the sun rises during the solstices, suggesting a deep connection to astronomy and the cycles of nature. In an environment where water was the most precious resource, these geoglyphs may have been part of elaborate ceremonial pathways, a form of ritual prayer to summon life-giving rain from the gods. The hummingbird, a creature that thrives on nectar, could have been a powerful symbol of fertility and a plea for water in a parched land. This transforms the lines from mere art into a critical interface between the human and the divine. The true genius of the Nazca was not just in their technical skill, but in their profound motivation. They invested generations of labor into creating magnificent art they could never fully behold, a testament to their belief in something greater than themselves. Why create what you cannot see? The answer speaks to a fundamental human drive to connect with the cosmos, to leave a permanent mark that transcends the individual, and to engineer hope into the very landscape. Deep within the lush river basins of Costa Rica, another ancient mystery lies half buried in the earth. The Diquis Delta is home to hundreds of stone spheres, some as small as a grapefruit, others colossal, weighing more than 15 tons. Crafted by pre-Columbian peoples between 600 and 1500 years after the Common Era, these objects are mesmerizing in their simplicity and perfection. They are almost perfectly round, their surfaces smooth to a high polish, carved from stubborn stone like gabbro and limestone. To stand before one is to feel a profound sense of wonder, not at their size but at their impossible geometry. How does a culture without modern tools or even the wheel create such flawless spheres? The process was undoubtedly a monumental feat of patience and skill. Artisans likely began by selecting a large boulder, then using harder stones to peck away at its surface, gradually roughing out a spherical shape. The real genius was in the finishing. Researchers believe they used a combination of grinding with coarse sand and water, and possibly controlled heating and cooling, to slowly erode the stone into its final, breathtaking form. They might have suspended the sphere on a cradle of logs, constantly rotating it as they worked, using simple plumb lines or taut strings to check for high spots, shaving away imperfections over months or even years. This was not a single lifetime's work, but a tradition passed down through generations, a slow, deliberate act of creation where the final vision existed only in the collective mind of the community. Their purpose is as enigmatic as their construction. At sites like Finca 6, the spheres are arranged in mysterious patterns, lines and triangles and curves that stretch across the landscape. Some archaeologists, like John Hoops, suggest these formations could have been cosmic maps, mirroring constellations or representing celestial bodies. Others believe they were powerful status symbols, markers of chiefdoms and social hierarchy, their size and number proclaiming the authority of a clan. In at least one instance, a sphere was found placed within a burial site, a silent guardian for an important ancestor, intertwining the object with rituals of lineage and veneration. This transforms the spheres from mere monuments into something far more profound. They were anchors of identity, physical manifestations of a community's beliefs, their place in the cosmos, and their connection to those who came before. Why would a society invest such immense, generational effort into objects whose full meaning we can only guess at? The answer may lie in the very act of their creation. The knowledge required to make them was a form of cultural glue, a specialized craft that bound the community together with a shared purpose. The sphere itself was the destination, a perfect, tangible expression of unity and belief. In a world without written records, these stone balls were their library, their calendar, and their creed, all encoded in a language of form and placement that we are still struggling to decipher. They remind us that ancient genius was not always about practical utility. Sometimes the most advanced engineering was dedicated to the human spirit, to the eternal need to make sense of our world and leave a perfect, enduring mark upon it. These polished stone spheres represent a profound dedication to abstract form, but in the dusty collections of the National Museum of Iraq, a far more enigmatic object waits. It is a simple terracotta jar, no larger than a hand, dating from the Parthian era around 2,000 years ago. Inside this unassuming vessel, archaeologists found a rolled copper sheet, an iron rod, and traces of an acidic residue like vinegar or wine. To the curator who first examined it, Wilhelm Koenig, it looked uncannily like a primitive electric battery. The arrangement was perfect. If you filled the jar with an acidic electrolyte, a chemical reaction between the two different metals would generate a small but measurable electric voltage. This is the basic principle of any galvanic cell, the same science Alessandro Volta would not formally discover until the year 1800. Yet here was potential evidence that the concept was understood and applied centuries, perhaps even a millennium earlier. The implications are staggering. What possible use could an ancient society have for a trickle of electricity? Experiments with modern replicas show these jars can produce just over 1 volt of power, enough to cause a faint tingle or to electroplate a small object. One compelling theory suggests these batteries were used to apply a thin layer of gold onto silver artifacts, a process called gilding. A craftsman could have dipped an object into a gold solution, connected it to the battery, and used the electric current to bond the precious metal onto the surface, creating a beautiful and durable finish. Another possibility lies in the realm of medicine. Ancient texts describe the use of electric fish to numb pain. Could a priest or healer have used the mild shock from such a jar for therapeutic purposes, perhaps to soothe muscle aches, or were these devices part of temple rituals? Imagine a statue of a god wired with several of these batteries, able to deliver a mysterious vibration to a worshipper's hand. The effect would have been truly mystical, a tangible sensation of divine power that reinforced religious authority. Yet for all these fascinating theories, a profound skepticism remains. No wires have ever been found with these jars. No diagrams or texts explain their purpose. It is entirely possible they were simply a unique type of storage vessel, and the electrical properties are a complete coincidence, a happy accident of chemistry we have misinterpreted. This is the core of the mystery. The Baghdad Battery stands as a powerful symbol of a road not taken. It hints at a flicker of understanding, a brief grasp of a fundamental force of nature that then vanished, leaving no trace in the historical record. How many times has humanity stumbled upon a great truth, only to lose it again before it could change the world? This single clay jar challenges our linear view of progress. It suggests that invention is not a steady march forward, but a cycle of discovery and forgetting, where genius can flare up in the most unexpected times and places, only to be extinguished by the sands of time. What other fragments of lost science are sitting in museum basements, waiting for us to look at them with new eyes? While a clay jar might hold a spark of forgotten electricity, the greatest ancient voyages were powered by something far more profound, a deep and intimate conversation with the natural world. Across the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, Polynesian navigators achieved what seemed impossible. They discovered and settled thousands of islands from Hawaii to Easter Island, traversing millions of square miles of open sea in double-hulled canoes, all without maps, without compasses, and without any of the instruments we consider essential for exploration. Their journey was not a random drift, but a deliberate, sustained campaign of colonization that unfolded over millennia. This was not luck. It was a supreme act of reverse engineering the environment itself. They learned to read the world as a living map. The night sky was their primary guide. They memorized the precise paths of hundreds of stars, knowing which ones would rise and set over specific islands. This mental star compass was so precise that if their destination lay where a certain star touched the horizon, they would sail unerringly toward that point. But the sky was only one page of their navigational text. They learned to interpret the subtle patterns of ocean swells, feeling the way large, rolling waves reflected off distant islands, creating a unique interference pattern that could be sensed through the hull of the canoe. They watched the flight paths of birds. A tern flying out to sea in the morning and returning at night meant land was near. The color of the clouds, the taste of the air, even the specific types of driftwood floating in the water, all of it was data. This immense library of knowledge was not written down. It was preserved and passed orally from master navigator to apprentice, a rigorous training that could take decades. The challenge of reconstructing this genius is immense. We must understand how a human mind can hold such a complex, dynamic model of the world, constantly updated through sensory input. Scholars like David Lewis learned from the last traditional navigators, documenting a system built on empirical science, refined through generations of courageous trial and error. The vessels themselves were marvels of appropriate technology. Built from wood, fiber, and sinew, these great canoes were lashed together, not nailed. This created a flexible structure that could bend and yield with the power of the ocean, a stark contrast to the rigid ships of later European explorers that often fared worse in stormy seas. The true test of this reconstructed knowledge came with the voyage of the Hocula, a modern replica of a Polynesian voyaging canoe. In the 1970s, using only traditional wayfinding methods, it successfully sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti, proving beyond doubt that these ancient techniques were not just folklore, but a highly effective science of exploration. This journey did more than settle a historical debate. It ignited a cultural renaissance, restoring a deep sense of pride and identity across Polynesia. So what is the ultimate lesson of these master navigators? In an age of satellite GPS and digital everything, their legacy is a vital reminder that the most advanced system is not always the one with the most technology. It is the one most perfectly harmonized with its environment. They teach us about resilience, about trusting observed knowledge, and about the incredible power of human intuition and memory. When we are lost, perhaps we should not only look at a screen, but also remember to look up at the stars, to feel the wind, and to listen to the whispers of the sea. That same mastery of the environment, so vital on the open ocean, was channeled into stone and mortar on land. The Roman aqueducts were not just structures, they were the arteries of an empire. Picture a channel of water flowing for dozens of miles from a mountain spring to the heart of a bustling city, and all of it moving without a single pump. The water did not gush or rush, it glided with a steady, purposeful current, descending only a few feet for every mile of its journey. This was the genius of the Roman aqueduct, a triumph of gravity and geometry made solid. To achieve this, Roman engineers like Vitruvius employed meticulous surveying. Their most crucial tool was the chorobates, a long, wooden frame with a water-level groove carved along its top. By sighting along this perfectly level surface, they could measure the most gradual of slopes, ensuring the water would flow just fast enough to prevent stagnation, but slow enough to avoid eroding the channel walls. This precision was everything. A slope too steep would tear the conduit apart, while one too shallow would let sediment build up and block the flow. They were calculating the perfect balance for a river in a stone box. The famous Pont du Gard in France stands as a breathtaking example, a three-tiered arcade of golden stone that carries an aqueduct high across a river valley. Those iconic arches were not merely for show, they were a brilliant structural solution. they distributed the immense weight of the water-filled channel, allowing the aqueduct to cross vast distances and unstable ground with minimal materials and maximum strength. But the aqueduct was more than just the bridge. It was a continuous, carefully engineered system. Much of its length ran underground through tunnels and trenches, protected from evaporation and enemy attack. Along the route, they built sedimentation tanks where water would slow and allow impurities to settle out, a simple yet effective form of purification before it reached the city. When that clean, fresh mountain water finally poured into Rome, it transformed urban life. It fed public fountains where everyone could collect water, supplied the vast bath complexes that were centers of social life, and flushed out the sewers, dramatically improving public health. The Aqua Pia, the first of Rome's great aqueducts, did not just quench thirst, it enabled the city's explosive growth, turning a regional power into a world capital. The lesson here is one of holistic design. The Romans did not just build a water delivery system, they engineered an entire civilization around it. They understood that true infrastructure is not just about the physical structure, but about how it serves the people who depend on it. This ancient network functioned for centuries, a testament to durability and foresight that puts many of our own modern projects to shame. In an era grappling with water scarcity and aging pipes, the aqueducts ask us a profound question. Are we building for the next decade or for the next 1,000 years? High above the stage of the Epidaurus theater, a single word spoken in a normal voice carries with perfect clarity to the very last row. This is not a legend, but a demonstrable fact, an acoustic miracle carved from limestone and earth over 2,000 years ago. In a world without microphones or speakers, Greek architects engineered spaces where the subtle inflection of an actor's whisper could reach an audience of thousands, ensuring every emotional nuance was heard. The secret lies in the theater's brilliant geometry. The steep, semicircular bowl of stepped seating is not just for viewing, it is a giant acoustic filter. Each row of limestone benches acts as a diffraction grating, breaking up and scattering sound waves that would normally form disruptive echoes. The precise angle and rhythm of the steps catch the sound from the stage and reflect it upwards, channeling speech and music to the highest tiers. Researchers like Nico de Klerk discovered that the corrugated surface of the seating creates a resonant frequency that perfectly matches the range of the human voice, naturally suppressing low-frequency crowd noise while amplifying the higher frequencies of speech and song. This was not a happy accident. It was the result of generations of empirical refinement, a slow, deliberate reverse engineering of sound itself. Builders would construct, listen, and then modify, passing down hard-won knowledge of which slopes and materials created the clearest auditory experience. This acoustic precision was married to an equally sophisticated visual design. Every seat offers an unobstructed view of the stage, and the sound arrives in perfect sync with the action, creating an immersive experience that modern stadiums struggle to replicate with vast electronic systems. These theaters were the heart of civic and religious life, hosting festivals where entire communities gathered. The clarity of sound was essential, not for convenience but for meaning. It allowed the complex poetry of tragedies and the sharp wit of comedies to resonate with every single citizen, forging a shared emotional and intellectual journey. In an age of digital amplification and soundproofed rooms, the silent stones of Epidaurus ask us a pressing question. Have we, in our quest for technological solutions, forgotten how to build spaces that truly connect us? The genius of these ancient theaters reminds us that the most powerful design harmonizes with the fundamental laws of nature, using stone and geometry to do what we now require a tangle of wires and electricity to achieve. A 1,600-year-old iron pillar stands in Delhi, defying the most relentless force of nature, time itself. It shows no significant rust, its surface bearing a smooth, dark patina that has resisted corrosion for over a millennium and a half. This is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, a 7-meter-tall monument to a metallurgical genius that we have yet to fully replicate. Forged from a single, massive piece of high-purity wrought iron during the reign of King Chandragupta to the second around 400 years after the Common Era, its very existence shatters our timeline of industrial progress. Modern steel, left exposed to the monsoons and pollution of Delhi, would have long ago crumbled into a brittle orange shell. Yet this ancient pillar remains a silent sentinel from the Gupta Empire. The secret lies not in the iron itself, but in a delicate, invisible shield that coats its surface. Researchers like R. Balasubramaniam have identified this protective layer as mesowite, a rare crystalline compound rich in iron and phosphorus. This is not a coating that was applied, but a skin that grew from within, a direct result of the pillar's unique and sophisticated creation. The ancient smiths achieved this through a masterful control of their materials and process. They used a specific type of iron ore that was naturally high in phosphorus. During the forging, they worked the metal at high temperatures, likely using massive bellows to control the oxygen in their clay-lined furnaces. The high phosphorus content, usually a source of brittleness in modern steel, was their key ingredient. It prevented the formation of the iron oxide that causes rust, and through a slow, deliberate cooling process, it encouraged the formation of that stable, protective mesowite film on the surface. Consider the immense challenge. They had to smelt, purify, and weld a block of iron weighing over 6 tons without any of our modern instruments. They were likely working by sight and feel, judging temperatures by the color of the metal and the sound of the hammer. The inscriptions on the pillar itself, which glorify the king as a great warrior, tell us it was erected as a victory standard, a symbol of imperial power. But its true legacy is not in the words it bears, but in the material wisdom it embodies. This was a technology that blended practical chemistry with artistic and cultural expression. Why then did this revolutionary anti-corrosion technique not spread across the world? Why was it seemingly lost to history? The answer may be as simple as the recipe. The specific ore used may have been a local resource, its unique properties not fully understood even by the smiths who used it. The knowledge was likely held by a small, specialized guild of metalworkers, an oral tradition that could have easily vanished through war, social upheaval, or simply a lack of apprentices. Today, this ancient pillar is inspiring a new generation of material scientists. They are studying its passive layer, hoping to reverse engineer the process to create new, highly durable, and environmentally friendly alloys. The goal is to develop steel that does not require the toxic paints and coatings we rely on now, a more sustainable solution born from a 1600-year-old innovation. The iron pillar poses a profound question about the nature of progress. We often assume our technology is the pinnacle, but what if the past holds blueprints for a more resilient future? This artifact is more than a monument, it is a challenge. It asks us to look beyond our own assumptions and recognize that ancient genius often lies not in complexity, but in a deeper, more harmonious understanding of the materials the earth provides. Silent and massive on the Salisbury Plain, the stones of Stonehenge have guarded their secrets for over 4,000 years. This was not a single project, but a work in progress that spanned centuries, from around 3,000 to 2,000 years before the Common Era. Its creators began with the bluestones, a unique stone hauled from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of nearly 200 miles. How did they move these colossal rocks without the wheel or draft animals? The answer likely lies in a combination of brute force and clever engineering. They may have loaded the stones onto wooden sledges, dragging them over log rails, then floating them on rafts down rivers and along the coast, a monumental logistical feat that required coordinated labor across generations. The later Sarsen stones, the iconic giants of the circle, were local but no less daunting, some weighing over 25 tons. Erecting them required digging deep pits with sloped sides, maneuvering the stone into position with ropes and levers, and then packing the base with rubble to hold it forever upright. But the true marvel of their craftsmanship is in the lintels, the horizontal stones that form the iconic trilithons. To lock these massive caps into place, the builders employed a sophisticated woodworking technique in stone. They carved knob-like tenons on the top of the upright sarsens, which fit perfectly into hollowed-out mortise holes on the underside of the lintels. This precise joinery created a stable, interlocking frame that has withstood millennia of wind and weather. This was not rough construction. It was architecture of the highest order. The entire complex is meticulously aligned with the sun's journey. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, flooding the central altar with light. On the winter solstice, it sets perfectly between the pillars of the Grand Trilithon. This was no coincidence. It was a colossal stone calendar, a permanent fixture in the landscape that tracked the passage of the seasons, the promise of planting, and the threat of winter. Archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson's work suggests Stonehenge was far more than an observatory. It was part of a vast ritual landscape of the dead. His team discovered that the monument was a final resting place for a community's elite, with cremated remains buried in the surrounding Aubrey holes. Processional avenues linked it to the nearby River Avon and to Durrington Walls, a massive settlement of the living. This reveals a profound symbolic geography, a journey from the world of the living to the domain of the ancestors, all choreographed with the cycles of the sun and moon. Recent surveys have uncovered even more. A ring of deep pits surrounding the site, now called the Durrington Pits, may have marked a sacred boundary, a cosmological cordon separating the ceremonial center from the everyday world. And then there is the mystery of sound. The tight circle of immense hard stones creates a unique acoustic environment. Chants, drum beats, or even the simple rustle of ceremonial garb would have been reflected and amplified, creating an immersive, otherworldly soundscape that heightened the intensity of rituals. This was a place designed to overwhelm the senses, to connect the community to the rhythms of the cosmos and the spirits of their ancestors. Every summer solstice, thousands of people still gather at Stonehenge to watch the sunrise, continuing a tradition that stretches back to the dawn of civilization. Why did prehistoric peoples invest so much? They were building more than a monument. They were constructing a sacred space that gave meaning to life, death, and time itself. In our modern world, where we mark time with digital clocks and satellites, Stonehenge asks us a fundamental question. What are the structures we build to connect ourselves to something larger than our own individual lives? Deep within the desert canyons of Jordan, a civilization turned cliffs into a capital. This is Petra, the rose-red city, established by the Nabateans over 2,300 years ago. Its most breathtaking structures are not built but carved, excavated directly from the living rock of the mountainside. To stand before the treasury is to witness a facade of impossible elegance, its columns and statues chiseled with a refinement that echoes the great temples of Greece. Yet it was created here in the heart of the Arabian desert by a people who mastered their harsh world. The Nabateans did not just carve tombs and temples, they engineered an entire city to thrive in one of the most arid regions on Earth. Their genius lay in a profound understanding of a simple, brutal fact. In the desert, water is everything. They became hydrologists of the highest order, designing a system to capture, control, and conserve every precious drop. Their methods were remarkably sophisticated. They constructed massive dams to divert the destructive force of seasonal flash floods. They carved channels directly into the cliff sides, guiding water along the rock faces. They dug deep cisterns lined with waterproof plaster, creating hidden reservoirs that could sustain the population through long, rainless months. An expert like Leanne Bedal points out that this was not just survival, it was abundance. This captured water allowed for agriculture, for lush gardens, and for a bustling urban center that served as a crucial hub on the incense trade routes. How do you carve a city from a cliff without modern tools or blueprints? The process was one of subtraction, not addition. Workers would have scaled the rock faces on intricate networks of wooden scaffolding. They likely used simple plumb lines and measuring cords to mark out the grand designs before a single chip of stone was struck. Then they began at the top, carving downward, a deliberate method that prevented the accumulating rubble from burying their work. They used iron chisels and stone hammers, pecking away the soft sandstone layer by layer, a monumental act of patience that transformed a mountain into a monument. The entire city was designed for impact. The main entrance is the Sick, a narrow, winding gorge over a kilometer long with walls that soar 200 meters high. This was not merely a road, it was a ceremonial passage. As caravans traveled through this shadowy, twisting canyon, the view would suddenly open to reveal the treasury, its intricate facade glowing in the sun, a dramatic announcement of the city's wealth and power. This was a place where cultures and knowledge converged. Greek, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian influences blend seamlessly in the architecture, a testament to Petra's role as a cosmopolitan crossroads. The water conduits themselves show this fusion of ideas, applying an understanding of gravity and simple filtration that was likely gleaned from interacting with the wider world. The lesson of Petra is one of profound harmony. The Nabateans did not conquer their environment, they collaborated with it. They listened to the desert, understood its rhythms of scarcity and sudden plenty, and built a civilization that worked within those constraints. In a modern world facing its own resource challenges, Petra stands as a timeless question. Are we building cities that fight against nature, or can we learn to design with the same adaptive intelligence, creating communities that are not just sustainable, but are intrinsically woven into the landscape they inhabit? The sheer weight of its pages holds a silence more profound than any library. Known as the Codex Gigas or the Devil's Bible, this colossal manuscript from 13th century Bohemia is a fortress of vellum and ink, a book so massive it required 2 people to lift its 165-pound bulk. Within its binding lies the entire Latin Bible, medical texts, historical chronicles, and a terrifying, full-page portrait of the devil himself, a horned and lonely figure crouched in an empty realm. The legend woven around its creation is as dramatic as the illustrations it contains. A single monk, condemned to be walled up alive for breaking his vows, promised his brothers he would create the greatest book the world had ever seen, a work to glorify his monastery forever, all in a single night. To accomplish this impossible task, the story goes, he sold his soul and the devil finished the manuscript for him. The reality, of course, is far more human and no less extraordinary. Analysis by historians like Camille Bolden reveals the handwriting is remarkably consistent throughout, the work of one incredibly dedicated scribe, but it was not the work of a single desperate evening. The labor involved would have consumed decades, a lifetime of painstaking effort. Every page is made from animal skin, requiring the hides of perhaps 160 donkeys, each meticulously scraped and prepared. The scribe would have used countless goose quills, mixed his own vibrant pigments from minerals and plants, and worked by the flickering, unforgiving light of a candle or oil lamp. This was a marathon of faith and endurance, a project that became the monk's entire life. So why include such a fearsome image of the devil in a holy book? The illustration is not a celebration, but a caution. It stands opposite a magnificent depiction of the heavenly city, creating a stark visual sermon on the two eternal choices facing every soul. The devil is not a partner, but a prisoner bound within the sacred pages of Scripture, a defeated enemy forever captured on vellum. The Codex was a complete library in one volume, a treasure for a monastic community. Its pages held exorcism rites to combat evil, medical knowledge to heal the body, and historical records to root the community in time. The medical sections are a fascinating blend of observed science and tradition, detailing herbal remedies and surgical procedures that show a pragmatic approach to the human body, a quiet empirical genius at work. This book survived wars, fires, and the dissolution of its home monastery, a testament to the value placed upon it. It may have even served as a tool of diplomacy, a display of a monastery's wealth and learning to visiting dignitaries. The true mystery of the Codex Gigas is not one of supernatural aid, but of profound human motivation. What inner fire drives a person to dedicate their entire existence to a single, monumental task, knowing they may not live to see its completion? This book is a physical manifestation of the drive to preserve knowledge against the certain decay of time, to create something so permanent it could outlast empires. In our age of digital data that can vanish with a power surge, the Codex asks us what we are building that will truly endure. It stands as a bridge between myth and reality, proving that ancient genius was often just the courage to begin a work so vast it would demand everything you had to give. Beneath the waves off Japan's Yonaguni Island lies a submerged landscape that defies simple explanation. In the 1980s, a local diver stumbled upon what appeared to be a vast, sunken city. Massive stone terraces descend like a giant staircase into the deep blue. Sharp 90-degree angles intersect with perfectly straight, long corridors. There are what look like carved pillars, star-shaped platforms, and even a massive stone face, all covered in coral and marine life. The entire complex is a haunting, beautiful puzzle resting on the seafloor. When marine geologist Masaki Kimura began studying the site, he became convinced this was not a natural formation. He points to features that seem unmistakably artificial, like two monumental pillars that appear placed to support a ceiling, and a trench surrounding the main structure that resembles a defensive moat. His dating of the site is staggering, suggesting it was last above water around 10,000 years before the Common Era, a time when conventional history tells us humans were simple hunter-gatherers. If he is correct, this single site would shatter our entire timeline of civilization. The debate that erupted is a classic conflict between geology and archaeology. Skeptics like Robert Schoch argue that the sandstones in this region naturally fracture along sharp plains, and that strong underwater currents can, over millennia, sculpt what look like steps and terraces. They see a spectacular but entirely natural geological phenomenon. The reverse engineering challenge is to distinguish the impossible from the improbable. How do you prove human intention on a timescale that swallows empires? Researchers meticulously map the site with sonar, searching for patterns that nature cannot replicate. They look for tool marks, for symmetrical arrangements that follow a clear design, and for any small artifacts that could confirm a human presence. The most compelling clues may be in the site's orientation. Key structures appear aligned with the solstices, suggesting a possible celestial purpose, a calendar carved in stone for a people who understood the sky. This idea resonates with Pacific legends of a sunken continent called Mu, a vast civilization lost beneath the waves. Yonaguni is not alone. Off the coast of India, the ancient city of Dropa, mentioned in sacred texts, has been found submerged, its stone walls and artifacts confirming a history long thought mythical. These underwater ruins collectively tell a story of a dynamic planet. At the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose by over 100 meters, swallowing vast coastal plains where early humans may have thrived. What if we are not looking at the dawn of civilization, but at its scattered remains? The true genius these sites represent might be one of adaptation. They hint at societies that mastered their coastal environments, only to be overcome by a global climatic shift they could not control. This changes the mystery from a simple question of who built them to a more profound inquiry. What does it mean for our own future if the ruins of our greatest cities could one day lie beneath the sea, waiting for a future generation to discover and wonder? A network of roads stitching an empire together across the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. This was the legacy of the Inca, stretching over 40,000 kilometers from modern-day Colombia to Chile. Their system was a masterpiece of pragmatic genius, built without the wheel, without iron, and without any form of written language as we know it. The roads were not simple dirt paths, they were engineered landscapes. In coastal deserts, walls lined the routes to keep back drifting sand. Across swampy valleys, they built causeways of stone and packed earth. In the soaring Andes, they carved stairways directly into cliff faces and pierced mountains with tunnels. Their most breathtaking innovations were the suspension bridges, woven from native grasses and fibers. Each year, communities would gather to renew these vital links, braiding new cables and replacing the deck, a ritual of maintenance that turned engineering into a communal act of faith. This was not a static system, but a living, breathing network that adapted to its environment with profound intelligence. The empire was connected by a core of elite relay runners known as chasquis. Stationed in pairs at way stations called tambos, these highly trained men would sprint short, brutal distances, passing messages encoded in a complex system of knotted cords called quippers. A message could travel over 200 kilometers in a single day, a speed unmatched until the invention of the telegraph. The quipu itself was the empire's database. These intricate arrays of colored, knotted strings were not mere accounting tools. They likely recorded histories, laws, and the very logistics that kept the road system functioning. They were a tangible, portable information technology, a binary code in fiber that managed an entire civilization. The sheer manpower required to build and maintain this network came from a system called mita, a form of communal labor service. Every household owed a certain amount of time to the state, working on construction projects, farming state lands, or serving in the military. This was not slavery, but a deeply embedded social contract. It mobilized thousands of people in a coordinated effort, turning the abstract concept of an empire into a shared, physical reality built by the hands of its own citizens. The roads were more than just practical, they were sacred. They were deliberately aligned with holy mountains or apus and followed the courses of revered rivers. The journey to a site like Machu Picchu was itself a spiritual pilgrimage, with the road enhancing the reverence for the landscape rather than conquering it. The infrastructure was woven into their cosmology, a physical manifestation of their connection to the earth. So what holds the real lesson for us today? The Inca roads demonstrate that the most resilient systems are not those that overpower nature, but those that listen to it. They used local materials adapted to seismic activity and integrated their infrastructure with the spiritual and social fabric of their society. In our age of concrete and steel, we build monuments to our own ingenuity, but the Inca built a network that was a part of the mountain itself. Their empire ultimately fell, but the stones of their roads remain, asking us a quiet, persistent question. Is our own infrastructure built to last, and more importantly, is it built to serve the community and the land with the same profound respect? A single clay disc holds a message frozen in time for over 3,700 years. Unearthed in the palace of Phaistos on the island of Crete, this fired clay circle is imprinted with 241 mysterious symbols, arranged in a tight, spiraling coil on both sides. Each pictograph was pressed into the soft clay with a unique seal, a technique that feels startlingly modern, like an early form of printing that would not be seen again for millennia. This is the Phaistos Disc, and its silent language is one of archaeology's most stubborn and captivating enigmas. The symbols themselves are a gallery of the ancient world, a miniature menagerie of walking men and shaved heads, ships and shields, bees and birds, all captured in a beautiful, precise script that appears nowhere else. No other artifact like it has ever been found, making it an isolated whisper from a lost civilization. This isolation is the core of the mystery. Without a Rosetta Stone, without even a fragment of a similar text for comparison, how can we possibly hope to understand its meaning? The reverse engineering of this object is a battle of wits against time itself. Researchers like Gareth Owens have spent years applying the tools of computational linguistics, analyzing the frequency and position of each symbol. They search for patterns that might reveal grammar, for repeated sequences that could be names or common words. His work suggests the text may be a religious hymn, perhaps dedicated to a mother goddess, with recurring signs that could be read as words for woman or for a specific deity. This theory paints a picture of the disc as a sacred object, a portable prayer used in rituals, but other interpretations abound. Could it be an astronomical calendar tracking celestial cycles for planting and harvest? Or was it a diplomatic passport, a clay credential for a trader moving between cultures? Its symbols conveying information across language barriers much like modern emojis, but with a formal, structured purpose we can no longer grasp. The very method of its creation is a revolutionary puzzle. The use of individual seals to stamp the symbols means the Minoans had conceived of movable type over 3,000 years before Gutenberg's press. This was not an isolated invention. It implies a system, a workshop where a set of these seals was kept and used to compose different messages. Yet we have found no other stamped documents, no other seals. It is as if we found a single, perfect smartphone from the Bronze Age with no charging cable, no network, and no manual. This leads to another tantalizing possibility, that the disc was not a local creation at all, but an import from a distant land, a lone survivor from a culture whose written records have completely vanished. The disc then becomes a cryptographic device, a locked box of knowledge. What kind of information was so valuable or so secret that it required this sophisticated method of encoding? The spiraling format suggests a narrative, a story to be read from the outer edge inward, a journey to a central truth. Every attempt at decoding is a conversation with a ghost, an effort to climb inside the mind of a Bronze Age scribe and see the world through their eyes. Why has this one object resisted all our efforts? Perhaps the code is not just in the symbols, but in the context, a cultural framework that has been utterly lost. The Phaistos Disc challenges our most basic assumptions about communication and progress. It reminds us that history is not a single story, but a library of which most volumes are burned, and that the most profound genius of the ancient world may be waiting for us, not in grand monuments, but in the quiet, encoded spiral of a simple clay disc. That distinctive wavy pattern on a Damascus blade is more than just decoration. It is the visible signature of a metal that defied its time. Forged in the Middle East from around 300 years after the Common Era, these legendary swords were born from a specific type of high-carbon steel known as woots, which was imported from India in cake-like ingots. The smiths who worked this material were alchemists of the highest order, transforming raw ingots into weapons of myth. Crusaders who faced them in battle returned with stories of swords so sharp and resilient they could supposedly slice through a falling silk scarf or another soldier's inferior blade without losing their edge. The secret was not just in the steel's composition, but in a transformative process of extreme heat and precise hammering. The woot steel was heated to a critical temperature, just below its melting point, until it glowed a specific cherry red. Then the smith would begin the meticulous work of folding and hammering, not to mix the metal as in other traditions, but to carefully control its internal structure. This intense thermal cycling caused the carbon within the steel to form into incredibly hard carbide bands, which were then stretched and folded by the hammer, creating the flowing, watery pattern known as damask. Modern science has since peered into this ancient matrix, and the findings are breathtaking. Using powerful electron microscopes, researchers discovered that within the steel's structure were carbon nanotubes, tiny, incredibly strong cylinders of carbon atoms. These nanotubes, formed from the specific trace elements in the original Indian ore, acted as a microscopic reinforcement, giving the blade its legendary combination of hardness that held a razor edge and a flexibility that prevented shattering. Experts like Oleg Sherby spent years trying to reverse engineer this exact process, discovering that elements like vanadium in the ore were crucial catalysts for forming these nanostructures. The entire method relied on a profound, empirical understanding of materials, a knowledge built through generations of observation, trial, and error, all without any concept of modern chemistry or physics. So why did this revolutionary technique vanish by the 18th century? The answer is as fragile as the supply chain it depended on. The specific mines in India that produced the ore with the perfect cocktail of trace elements may have been exhausted. Or, more likely, shifting trade routes and political upheavals severed the flow of the raw material, the vital ingredient. The knowledge held in the hands and eyes of a few master smiths faded away when they could no longer practice their craft. A single, well-preserved Damascus blade was more than a weapon. It was a cultural heirloom, a symbol of power and artistry passed down through generations. Its shimmering surface told a story of far-off lands, of chemical secrets locked in stone, and of human genius that could bend the very nature of metal to its will. The loss of Damascus steel is a stark warning from history. It shows us that even the most advanced knowledge is not permanent. It can be erased by something as simple as a disrupted trade route. In our age of rapid industrialization and disposable goods, what other forms of deep, empirical mastery are we at risk of losing forever? The quest to rediscover this steel is not just about forging a better blade, it is a lesson in preserving the fragile, hands-on wisdom that truly connects us to the material world. A serpent of shadow and light slithers down the pyramid of Kukulkan. For a few breathtaking moments during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts triangular shadows along the northern staircase, connecting a carved stone serpent head at the base to its undulating body of light. This was no accident of architecture. It was a precise celestial event engineered by the Maya between 600 and 1200 years after the Common Era, a stunning fusion of astronomy, engineering, and faith. The entire city of Chichen Itza was a cosmic clock carved in stone, its structures meticulously aligned with the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. The Maya did not just observe the heavens, they built a working model of them on Earth. Their astronomical knowledge was breathtakingly precise. They tracked the complex cycles of Venus, which they associated with war, with an error of just 1 day in 584 years. Their long count calendar could accurately predict solar eclipses, and their understanding of the solar year guided the critical agricultural cycles of planting and harvest. This was not abstract science, it was the practical, spiritual, and political bedrock of their civilization. How did they achieve such precision without telescopes or modern instruments? Archaeoastronomers like Anthony Aveni have shown they likely used simple, brilliant tools. A vertical pole or gnomon could cast a shadow whose changing length throughout the year marked the solstices and equinoxes. They may have used sighting tubes made from hollow reeds to pinpoint the rising and setting of specific stars on the horizon. Over generations, they refined these observations into a complex body of knowledge that was then encoded directly into their city planning. The genius of Chichen Itza extends beyond the visual. A single clap at the base of the Kukulkan pyramid echoes back as the distinct chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, an acoustic marvel achieved by the sound waves ricocheting off the steep, stepped limestone tiers. This was a place designed to engage all the senses in a cosmic dialogue. The Great Ball Court, the largest in Mesoamerica, is aligned with the sun's path. The game played here was far more than sport. It was a ritual reenactment of cosmic battles, a struggle between light and darkness where the outcome was believed to influence the very balance of the world. The investment required to build this celestial city was immense. It speaks of a society that organized its entire existence around a unified vision of the cosmos, where the king acted as an intermediary between the people and the gods, and where the stones themselves were taught to speak the language of the sky. Today, thousands of people gather at Chichen Itza to witness the descent of the serpent, a tradition that connects the modern world directly to this ancient genius. Why did the Maya go to such lengths? They built to remember, to predict, and to participate. Their architecture was a mechanism for ensuring the world kept turning, the rains would fall, and the sun would continue its journey. In our modern world, where science and spirituality are often seen as separate, the stones of Chichen Itza ask a profound question. What have we lost by dividing our understanding of the universe? Their legacy is a challenge to reintegrate, to build and live in a way that acknowledges our deep and enduring connection to the natural world and the cosmos above. A set of stone discs discovered in a remote Chinese cave presents a mystery that straddles the line between archaeology and science fiction. In 1938, an expedition into the Bayan Kara Ula Mountains allegedly uncovered hundreds of these flat, circular stones, each with a spiral groove meticulously carved from the center outward. The local legend that accompanied them was extraordinary. These were the Dropa stones, said to contain the story of a small band of beings whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains thousands of years ago, stranding them far from home. The spiral grooves, when examined under magnification, were purported to be a form of microscopic writing, a record of their plight. The story deepened when Russian scientists supposedly analyzed the stones in the 1960s, reporting that the discs were made of granite with high concentrations of cobalt and exhibited a strange, rhythmic vibration as if they once carried an electrical charge. If true, this would suggest a form of ancient technology for recording information, a prehistoric hard drive encoded not in magnetic bits, but in the very grain of the stone. The reverse engineering challenge is to look past the sensational claims and examine the physical evidence. Could those tiny grooves, if mapped with modern imaging technology, reveal a pattern consistent with a written language or even a form of binary code. The location of the find adds another layer. The Bayan-Kara Ula region is isolated, home to unique cultural groups, and the discs were said to be found alongside unusual skeletal remains. This context could point to a completely human, yet no less fascinating, story of an isolated people developing a unique method of record-keeping, their history literally carved in stone. Yet, the entire edifice of the Dropa mystery crumbles under one simple fact. The original stones have never been made available for study by the broader scientific community. They are not housed in any reputable museum, and no verifiable photographs or scientific papers from the alleged Russian studies exist. The story we have today was popularized through articles in obscure magazines, a classic case of a modern myth born from a mixture of misidentification and deliberate fabrication. The stones themselves were likely nothing more than common by discs, ancient Chinese ceremonial artifacts, or even natural geologic formations known as stone pennies. So why does this story persist with such power? It taps directly into our deepest questions and desires. The idea of ancient extraterrestrial contact offers a tantalizing shortcut, an explanation for historical mysteries that seems more exciting than the slow, meticulous work of archaeology. It reflects a profound human yearning to believe we are not alone in the universe and that our past is far more spectacular than we ever imagined. The Dropa stones, whether a hoax or a misunderstanding, ultimately tell us less about ancient astronauts and more about ourselves. They are a mirror reflecting our endless capacity for wonder and our sometimes desperate hope that the universe is filled with stories even more incredible than our own. What does it say about us that we are so willing to believe in impossible histories? Perhaps these modern myths are the folktales of a technological age, cautionary tales about the evidence we wish we could find, and the truths we are sometimes afraid to face. While the Maya aligned their pyramids with the stars, a city 5,000 miles away engineered a different kind of miracle, one flowing beneath its streets. Mohenjo-Daro, a metropolis of the ancient Indus Valley, thrived around 2,500 years before the Common Era with a luxury that seems almost modern, a sophisticated sewer system. This was not a haphazard collection of open gutters, but a meticulously planned network of covered drains, bathrooms in nearly every home, and wastewater channels that snaked through the city, all built with standardized kiln-fired bricks. Imagine the daily life in such a place, where waste was efficiently carried away by gravity, where fresh water from countless wells and public bathing platforms supported a dense urban population in remarkable health. The entire city was a masterclass in urban planning, with straight streets, organized blocks, and a great central granary, all pointing to a centralized authority with a profound understanding of engineering and public welfare. Researchers like Jonathan Mark Kenoyer have studied this hydraulic genius, revealing how the Harappans designed their drains with precisely calculated slopes to ensure a self-cleaning flow, preventing blockages and stagnation that would have bred disease. They even used bitumen, a natural tar, to waterproof the bricks in their most important structures like the Great Bath, a large, meticulously sealed pool that likely served both ritual purification and social functions. This was a civilization that understood material properties and their application for public good. The true mystery, however, is not just how they built it, but how they conceived of it so early and why this knowledge ultimately faded. With no deciphered written records, we cannot read their engineering manuals or public health decrees. We can only study the silent, enduring bricks. Their system rivaled, and in some ways predated, the famous sewers of ancient Rome by over 2,000 years, offering a quality of urban life that would not be seen again for millennia. So what led to its decline? Climate change may have slowly shifted the rivers that were their lifeblood, or invasions may have disrupted the social order that maintained this complex infrastructure. The lesson for our own sprawling modern cities is profound. In an era of aging pipes and water scarcity, Mohenjo-Daro stands as a timeless testament to a simple, powerful truth. A society's resilience is not measured by its grandest monuments, but by the quality of the water flowing beneath its streets and the health of the people who walk above them. How many of our own modern marvels would function for a century, let alone thousands of years, without constant, intensive intervention? On a remote island already famous for its silent stone giants, another mystery waits carved into wood. The Rongorongo Script of Easter Island consists of a handful of wooden tablets, their surfaces covered in thousands of intricate glyphs. Discovered by missionaries in the 19th century, these tablets present a puzzle as profound as the moai statues themselves. The glyphs depict frigate birds, crouching men, strange plants, and complex geometric forms, all arranged in a precise, linear pattern. But unlike the statues that stare out to sea, these carvings hold a voice we can no longer hear. Experts believe Rongorongo may be a unique form of writing, a system developed in complete isolation to record sacred chants, genealogies, or the island's history. The very existence of writing on such a remote island challenges our understanding of how and where complex communication systems emerge. The script is written in a style called Boustrophedon, meaning the line's alternate direction, like an ox plowing a field. You read one line left to right, then turn the tablet and read the next line right to left. This intricate structure suggests it was meant to encode complex narratives, not just simple lists. Linguist Stephen Fisher has proposed that the glyphs correlate with the rhythms of Polynesian oral traditions, acting as memory aids for reciting vast amounts of cultural knowledge. Reconstructing this lost language is a monumental task. Researchers use statistical analysis to hunt for patterns, counting the frequency of certain glyphs and their combinations, hoping to identify names, verbs, or recurring phrases. They compare the symbols to other Pacific art forms, searching for clues in the shared cultural heritage of the region, yet every potential key has failed to unlock the full message. One of the most haunting theories is that Rongorongo was a late invention, possibly developed after the islanders saw European writing for the first time. This would mean the script was born as the society was already beginning its tragic collapse from overpopulation and ecological devastation. The very act of carving these tablets, then, might have been a desperate attempt to preserve a world that was slipping away. The ceremonies that used these tablets likely reinforced the power of the Birdman cult and the social hierarchies that organized the island. What if decoding Rongorongo revealed not just myths but hard-won lessons? What if these wooden tablets hold a detailed account of the island's environmental decline, a warning about the consequences of stripping a landscape bare? The parallels to our own modern challenges are impossible to ignore. The ultimate tragedy of Rongorongo is its silence. A sophisticated system of knowledge, painstakingly carved, was rendered meaningless within a generation or two. Its obscurity is a stark lesson in the fragility of human understanding. When a society falls, its libraries can burn in an instant, and its most profound genius can vanish without a whisper. Why create a written record only for it to become an indecipherable relic? The answer speaks to a universal human drive to speak to the future, to leave a mark that says we were here and we understood our world. The glyphs of Rongorongo are a plea from the past, urging us to listen and to learn before our own stories become just as lost. The dome of the Pantheon in Rome is a perfect hemisphere of concrete, an unsupported span that has defied gravity and time for nearly 2,000 years. Modern concrete, by contrast, often shows its age in crumbling bridges and spalling structures within mere decades. The secret to this ancient endurance was not just in the material, but in a specific, almost magical recipe. Roman engineers, beginning around 200 years before the Common Era, perfected a mixture using lime and a special volcanic ash called pozzolana, named for the town of Pozzuoli near Mount Vesuvius. When mixed with water and lime, this fine ash triggered a powerful chemical reaction, creating a binder that was not only strong but actually gained strength over centuries, especially when exposed to water. This was a concrete that thrived in the very element that destroys its modern equivalent. Scientists like Marie Jackson have spent years reverse engineering samples from Roman piers and breakwaters, and their findings are revolutionary. They discovered that as seawater seeped into the concrete, it reacted with the volcanic ash and lime to form rare, crystalline minerals like strettlingite. These minerals effectively sealed microscopic cracks as they formed, a self-healing property that modern materials scientists can only dream of replicating. The Roman process was a lesson in patience. They did not use rapid curing. They allowed their concrete to cure slowly, sometimes for years, enabling this complex crystalline structure to develop and interlock, creating a resilient, monolithic stone that resisted erosion. The harbor at Caesarea in Israel stands as a stunning testament to this marine-grade concrete. Its underwater portions, subjected to constant wave action and saltwater for 2 millennia, remain largely intact, while modern concrete docks nearby require constant repair. This was not an accidental discovery. It was the result of generations of empirical experimentation, of trying different ash-to-lime ratios, of observing how mixtures performed in different environments. The societal impact of this material was immense. It enabled the construction of vast aqueducts that brought fresh water to cities, monumental amphitheaters like the Colosseum, whose concrete foundations could support tens of thousands of spectators, and military infrastructure that secured the empire's borders. It was the physical backbone of Roman urbanization and expansion. So why was this miraculous recipe lost after the empire's fall? The knowledge was likely fragmented, held by specialized guilds of builders whose trade secrets died with them as political stability crumbled and long-distance trade routes for materials like pozzolana were severed. The centralized, large-scale projects that demanded such durable concrete simply ceased to exist. Today, the quest to decode Roman concrete is more than historical curiosity. It is a pressing necessity. As we face the environmental cost of producing modern Portland cement, a process that generates vast amounts of carbon dioxide, the Roman formula offers a blueprint for a more sustainable future. What if we could build seawalls that grow stronger with the ocean's touch, or create infrastructure that lasts for millennia instead of decades? The silent, enduring dome of the Pantheon asks us a profound question about our own legacy. Are we building for the present or for the ages? While the Romans perfected concrete, a far earlier culture was engineering with earth and timber to capture the sun itself. In a quiet field in Germany, a simple circular ditch and a ring of wooden posts mark the site of Goseck Circle, a solar observatory built nearly 7,000 years ago. This was a place where Neolithic farmers gathered to watch the sky, using the horizon as their clock and the sun as their guide. The design was brilliantly straightforward. Two opposing gates in the circular palisade were aligned with the rising and setting sun during the winter solstice. As the sun reached its lowest point in the sky, its rays would shine directly through these narrow openings, marking the shortest day of the year with unerring accuracy. This was not a grand temple of stone, but a functional, communal instrument carved from the landscape. The precision is what stuns modern researchers. The circle, 75 meters across, was laid out with a geometric understanding that allowed it to function as a reliable calendar. Archaeologists like Francois Berthimes see it as part of a network of similar enclosures across Europe, evidence of a shared cultural impulse to track time. For a society dependent on agriculture, knowing when to plant and when to harvest was a matter of survival. The turning of the seasons dictated their entire existence. Goseck's circle provided that critical knowledge, a fixed point in a changing world. But how did they develop this astronomical wisdom without writing? The knowledge was likely passed down through generations orally, refined through centuries of patient observation. Elders would teach the young to watch for specific stars, to note the sun's changing path, and to understand the subtle signs in their environment. The circle itself was a physical repository for this collective memory, a place where the abstract movements of the heavens became a tangible, witnessed event. The observatory was almost certainly more than just a practical tool. The solstice was a time of profound spiritual significance, a moment when the sun seemed to die and be reborn. Gatherings at the circle would have reinforced community bonds, uniting people through a shared experience of the cosmic cycle. It was a ritual that connected their daily lives to the grand order of the universe. Why would a society of early farmers invest so much labor in building this structure? The answer lies in the intersection of survival and meaning. They needed to eat, and that required understanding the sky. But they also needed to believe, to feel part of something greater. Goseck's circle served both purposes perfectly. Today, astronomers study these ancient sites with deep respect, recognizing in them the origins of their own science. This simple ring of post holes in Germany speaks to a fundamental human trait, an insatiable curiosity about the world above us. It proves that the drive to measure, to predict, and to understand the cosmos is woven into the very fabric of our species. In an age of space telescopes and digital planetariums, the silent gates of Goseck ask us a quiet question. Are we still listening to the same ancient rhythms that first taught humanity to look up? A delicate wax model, sculpted with the finest details of a deity or an ancestor, holds its form for only a moment before being entombed in clay. This was the first step in the lost wax method, a revolutionary process that gave ancient metalworkers the power to cast the impossible into enduring bronze. From the river valleys of Mesopotamia around 3,000 years before the Common Era to the royal workshops of ancient China, this technique transformed artistry, allowing for the creation of intricate forms that stone carving or woodworking could never achieve. The principle was one of substitution and transformation. An artisan would build a core of clay and then model the final sculpture in a layer of beeswax, adding every nuanced expression, every fold of drapery. This wax original was then encased in a thick, heat-resistant clay mold with channels carefully left open. When the mold was fired in a kiln, the wax would melt and drain out, leaving behind a perfect hollow negative space, a cavity waiting to be filled. Then came the moment of alchemy. Workers would pour molten bronze, a glowing orange river of liquid metal heated to over 1,000 degrees Celsius in clay crucibles, into the empty mold. The metal would flow through the channels, filling every contour the wax had once occupied. After it cooled, the outer clay shell was broken away, revealing the raw bronze sculpture within, a twin of the original wax model now frozen in metal for eternity. The reverse engineering of this ancient genius reveals a profound understanding of material science. Controlling the temperature of the bronze was critical. Too hot, and it could burn away vital elements. Too cool, and it would not fill the fine details, creating casting flaws. They used massive bellows to stoke their furnaces, judging the metal's readiness by its color and fluidity. For hollow casts, like the magnificent Chinese ding vessels used in ritual feasts, they employed small metal pins called chaplets. These were inserted to hold the inner clay core in place during the pouring, ensuring the walls of the vessel remained evenly thick and the final piece was not impossibly heavy. This was not a secret held by one culture. It was a technology that spread and adapted, a testament to shared human ingenuity. In Greece, it produced the dynamic, lifelike statues that defined classical art. In West Africa, the Kingdom of Benin used it to create a breathtaking lineage of royal history, with bronze plaques that documented court life, military victories, and portraits of obas, creating a visual archive of their civilization. The expertise required was immense, a blend of sculptor, chemist, and engineer, all working in harmony. These bronze objects were far more than decoration. They were the centerpieces of sacred rituals, the symbols of political power exchanged in diplomatic gifts, and the coveted goods of long-distance trade. A bronze cauldron or statue was a concentration of wealth, skill, and cultural identity. The revival of lost wax casting in modern art and precision manufacturing, from jewelry making to aerospace components, proves the timelessness of this ancient solution. It asks us a quiet question about our own relationship with creation. In an age of digital design and three-dimensional printing, what have we gained in speed, and what have we perhaps lost in that intimate, physical dialogue between the artist's hand, a pliable material, and the transformative power of fire? A metropolis of 1 million people once flourished in the Cambodian jungle, a feat made possible not by stone alone, but by water. The Khmer Empire, from the 9th to the 15th centuries, engineered a hydraulic network so vast and sophisticated it transformed a challenging tropical landscape into an agricultural powerhouse. At its heart were the barrays, immense rectangular reservoirs that acted as the city's liquid lungs. The largest of these, the West Barray, is so enduringly well built that it still holds water today, an 8-kilometer-long testament to ancient genius. This was not a haphazard collection of ponds. It was a carefully calibrated system of canals, moats, and embankments designed to capture the fury of the seasonal monsoons. The Khmer engineers faced a dramatic cycle, from parching drought to overwhelming flood. Their solution was to build a landscape that could store the deluge and release it slowly, ensuring a steady supply of water for rice cultivation throughout the dry season. This allowed Angkor to support a population that would not be matched by any European city for centuries. How did they plan such a colossal network without detailed maps or modern surveying tools? Researchers like Damian Evans have used airborne LiDAR to see through the dense forest canopy, revealing the stunning truth. The city was a sprawling, low-density metropolis interconnected by water. The Khmer likely diverted rivers, building massive earthworks to guide the flow. This knowledge was almost certainly accumulated through generations of careful observation and trial and error, a slow, collective refinement of technique passed down from master engineers to their apprentices. The system was more than just practical, it was profoundly sacred. The barrays were not merely reservoirs, they represented the cosmic oceans of Hindu mythology. The central temple mountain, like Angkor Wat, symbolized Mount Meru, the axis of the universe. The moats and canals were the holy rivers that flowed from it. This symbolic alignment meant that managing the water supply was both an engineering duty and a religious act, a way of maintaining the cosmic order on Earth. Even the drinking water was treated with ingenuity, with evidence suggesting they used sand filtration systems to purify it for the urban population. This deep integration of utility and spirituality reveals a holistic worldview where the physical and the divine were inseparable. So why did this brilliant civilization eventually decline? The answer may lie in the very system that gave it life. A prolonged period of climatic instability featuring intense monsoons followed by severe drought could have overwhelmed the hydraulic network. The intricate canals might have silted up, or the dams failed under the stress, leading to crop failure and social upheaval. The lesson of Angkor is not one of ultimate failure, but of delicate balance. It demonstrates the incredible power of adapting to environmental cycles, but also the profound vulnerability that comes when those cycles shift beyond what the system was designed to handle. For our own era of climate change and water scarcity, the silent, reflective waters of the West Barre pose a critical question. Are we building resilient systems that can bend with the changing climate, or are we constructing rigid networks that will break under the pressure? A book written in a language that does not exist holds its secrets tight. The Voynich Manuscript, a 225-page codex from the 15th century, is perhaps the world's most stubborn literary mystery. Its vellum pages are filled with looping, unknown characters, a script that has defied every attempt at translation for over a century. Alongside this undeciphered text are bizarre and beautiful illustrations, pictures of plants that no botanist has ever identified, astrological charts of unfamiliar constellations, and drawings of tiny, nude women bathing in interconnected green pools. The manuscript feels like a glimpse into an alternate reality, a parallel world of science and nature. For decades, the finest minds in cryptography, including William Friedman and his team who broke Japanese codes during the Second World War, have turned their analytical power on this book. They applied every tool in their arsenal, from frequency analysis to pattern recognition, yet the Voynich text yielded nothing. It possesses a statistical structure that resembles a real language, with word lengths and character repetitions that feel organized and intentional, but it corresponds to no known tongue on Earth. This has led to a fascinating split in theories. Some researchers propose it is an extremely complex cipher, perhaps one that encodes a known language like Latin through a series of deliberate, misleading steps. Others argue it might be a glossolalia, a stream of conscious text in a constructed language, written by someone experimenting with the very idea of communication. The illustrations offer their own cryptic clues. One section appears to be a herbal, detailing the properties of fantastical plants with roots like spirals and leaves like lace. Another section is clearly astronomical, with circular diagrams of the sun, moon, and stars. There are even pages that look like recipes, accompanied by drawings of medicinal roots and leaves, suggesting the book could be a pharmacopoeia of lost botanical knowledge. Could these strange plants be symbolic representations of alchemical processes, or were they meant to disguise real herbal remedies from prying eyes? The manuscript's known history only deepens the enigma. It likely passed through the hands of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II of Prague, a monarch famous for his obsession with the occult and the strange. This context places the book squarely in the Renaissance world where the lines between science, magic, and art were beautifully blurred. A naturalist might also be an alchemist, an astronomer also an astrologer. The Voynich Manuscript could be the ultimate expression of this fused worldview, a single volume attempting to capture the entirety of a hidden cosmos. Today, the mystery is being tackled with 21st-century tools. Artificial intelligence algorithms now scan every curve of every letter, searching for patterns too subtle for the human eye. They analyze the ink's chemical composition and the vellum's origin, hoping a physical clue will break the code. Yet the book remains silent. Its resistance to modern computing power is a humbling reminder that some puzzles are not just about processing data, but about understanding a mindset that is utterly lost to us. Why does this unreadable book hold such a powerful grip on our imagination? It represents the ultimate locked door in the library of human knowledge. Decoding it could reveal a lost chapter in the history of science, or it could simply be an elaborate and beautiful prank, a testament to one individual's desire to create an unsolvable puzzle. The Voynich Manuscript teaches us that the unknown is not an empty space but a catalyst. It pushes us to develop new methods of analysis, to question our assumptions about language and meaning, and to forever wonder what genius or madness might be waiting just beyond our understanding on the next page. Its marble columns rise against the Greek sky, a vision of perfect geometry. Yet this perfection is a brilliant lie. The Parthenon, completed in 432 years before the Common Era, is an architectural symphony of deliberate imperfections, each one calculated to deceive the human eye into seeing flawless harmony. The builders knew that true straight lines would appear to sag under the immense weight of the structure, so they engineered an elegant solution. They gave the entire temple a gentle upward curve from its stepped base to its entablature, and they made the columns bulge slightly in the middle, a technique called entosses. From a distance, these subtle curves create the powerful illusion of rigid, perfect straightness. This was not guesswork. It was a profound application of mathematical ratios, including the golden section, a proportion revered for its aesthetic balance. The architects understood that human perception was as important as the stone itself, and they engineered the building to look perfect to the person standing before it. How do you execute such precise refinements across a colossal structure without lasers or computers? The answer lies in the collaborative genius of the entire society. Master masons likely used carefully carved wooden templates to ensure each marble drum was shaped identically. Sculptors and mathematicians worked side by side, translating abstract ratios into tangible forms. They quarried the brilliant white marble from nearby Mount Pentelicus and transported the massive blocks using complex systems of ramps, rollers, and pulleys, a testament to their logistical mastery. This was a communal project funded by the wealth of the Athenian Empire and directed by the statesman Pericles, a symbol of the city's cultural and political power. The sculptures that adorned the temple were not mere decoration. The famous frieze depicted the Panathenaic procession, a grand parade of citizens that occurred every 4 years. This was art fused with civic identity, a narrative in stone that celebrated the people who worshipped there, binding the community to the goddess Athena and to the democratic ideals of their city. The structure's resilience is another layer of its genius. The columns do not stand perfectly vertical. They tilt ever so slightly inward, and the corner columns are just a bit thicker than the others. These adjustments, studied by experts like Vincent Scully, gave the Parthenon a remarkable stability, allowing it to flex and sway during earthquakes rather than shatter. It was engineered as a living, breathing part of the landscape, its foundations carefully adapted to the uneven bedrock of the Acropolis. This integrative approach is the Parthenon's greatest lesson. The Greeks made no distinction between the artist and the engineer, the mathematician and the mason. For them, beauty was not an afterthought, it was the inevitable result of precise, thoughtful construction. In our modern world of utilitarian boxes and purely functional design, the silent, curving columns of the Parthenon ask us a vital question. Have we forgotten that the most enduring structures are those that honor both the laws of physics and the deepest needs of the human spirit? From the intricate gears of a Greek computer to the subtle curves of the Parthenon, these 26 mysteries reveal a profound truth about ancient genius. It was not born in isolation, but from a deep and attentive conversation with the natural world. Our ancestors observed the stars, felt the flow of water, and understood the properties of stone and metal through patient, hands-on experimentation. They did not separate their science from their art or their engineering from their spirituality. Each wonder was woven into the very fabric of their culture, a holistic approach that balanced technical skill with communal purpose and cosmic meaning. This is the timeless lesson these artifacts offer us. Reverse engineering their achievements is about more than just recovering lost techniques. It is about rediscovering a mindset. It is a reminder that true innovation flourishes when we connect different fields of knowledge, when we build with the landscape instead of against it, and when we design for both function and the human spirit. The resilience of Roman concrete and the sustainable hydraulics of Angkor provide blueprints for our own challenges with infrastructure and climate. The intuitive navigation of the Polynesians and the acoustic mastery of Greek theaters challenge our over-reliance on complex technology. These are not relics of a primitive past, they are conversations across time, offering insights for sustainable living and creative problem-solving today. Let this journey inspire you to see history not as a static record of dates and names, but as a dynamic, living source of inspiration. Every artifact, every silent stone, holds a lesson in human ingenuity and the enduring drive to achieve the impossible. I would love to hear which of these mysteries captured your imagination the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the puzzles of our past, subscribe